Hi, folks. So I'm here with Bogdan today. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this article that went viral, The Death of the Junior Developer. It basically says that a lot of people picked a bad year to be a junior developer, not just the computer industry, any industry. It's a bad year to be junior anything. I mean, it's not as easy as it used to be. Economy, it's cyclical, and you cannot pick the economical cycle you are born in, but you have to deal with it anyway. Things are not that bad.
I would say because of the economy contracting, it's going to be a bit slower. You will not get maybe hired as you used to get 3 years ago. But what will happen, and it did happen to me and Dragos when we started our careers, we also started in an economical depression. It was 2015 back in the days. What happened is 2018 came, our skills were good, and that's when our career boomed. So if you do the hard work, even if you are in an economical recession, your skills will keep improving. And when the economy will boom, that's when your career will take off and you'll go very, very fast. So I wouldn't even care about how the economy goes. What's important is that this year you keep improving and you keep getting better, because when the tide will come, then you'll be able to sail again at full speed.
I think LLMs in this case can produce research summaries, brief contracts. Bogdan, what's your take on that?
I think the word produce, it's a very strong word. It basically says the LLM can produce research and summarize and brief. I think the real production was made by a human that wrote the book, that did the research, and the only thing those large language models is to synthesize and mix that up. But produce, it's a very strong word when it comes to LLMs. I think they're basically pre-processor or post-processors of text, and the correctness of the output of LLM, it comes down to the quality of that text in the prompt.
I'll follow up with the next phrase, which says catching the LLM in a hallucination, catching a junior associate in a mistake, pretty similar. Really just two options for generating the same output. I would disagree, and I think the author, with all the respect, I think he's pretty genuine. Probably he's trying to warn us and doing his best, but I think his understanding of humans, of human level intelligence, and his understanding of what a junior developer it's able to do, it's extremely limited.
I would say that the way LLMs hallucinate, it's very, very different to the typical mistakes junior developers do. The typical mistakes we see juniors do, it's either because they lack certain context or they might not have the knowledge, but they do most of the times have the intent. They know what they want to get done. There's just a missing piece of context or an abstraction they're not familiar with. Whereas LLMs, they have all the abstraction, but they have no idea which one is the correct one. The way LLMs hallucinate, they can't really discriminate between what's correct or not. Whereas junior developers, they do know what they want to get done. That's usually just a knowledge gap they need to fix to get there. But they are humans. They understand very well the business context, they understand what the customers want, and they have a lot of knowledge that you'd otherwise need to put into an LLM just to get them to operate at the same level. So I would 100% disagree with that statement.
Okay, now let's move on to the next point. He doesn't consider himself a programmer anymore. And this is Bogdan, I want your input on this. What he's basically talking about is that this programmer makes GPT do all the work. And what I mean is that chat first is a default, and writing code by hand with completion naturally, it's our fallback plan. My quantum friend and I are both finding much less need for that fallback recently. Bogdan, you've been working with AI, all kind of AI tools in the last few months. You've been working with ChatGPT a lot. What's your take on this?
I think the quality of AI code is proportional to the debugging skills of the person writing it and to the prompt quality. So what happens as senior engineers is that they see very good solutions when we use AI, and it feels like AI is so good. But whenever you go into a domain you're not so familiar with and you start prompting the AI and you don't know how to debug, the time it takes to actually come up with a good solution, it's even more than if you just go to the docs and start things from scratch. And the reason for that is that although AI, GPT, Cursor, and whatever the next wrapper around GPT-4 is, they're really good at generating a lot of code. But that's not producing software. Software, it's code that was bulletproof, tested, debugged, the edge cases were specified, there was some acceptance testing, and it was shipped. And when you go from, I have this suggestion and I want to incorporate it in a code base, sometimes the time it takes, because GPT kind of just generated some code, the time it takes to read that and debug it and make sure it's actually something you can add to the code base, it's even higher than if you start from scratch. So I think it very much depends on the specific task. If, for example, you want to refactor some documentation, you have a JSON document, you want to write it as YAML, AI will do that much faster than a human. It can read 11,000 lines of code, it's a very structured transformation and give you a good output. However, if you are actually trying to solve a specific problem in the real world, you're better off understanding the business domain, the problem domain, modeling it yourself, making sure you come up with the smallest just data structure and then writing the code. The more time and the more experience the programmer has, the less code we write, the faster we're able to find solutions without even maybe writing any code at all. And that takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of system understanding and problem modeling. AI, as far as I played with all the tools, cannot do any of that. It's really binded to text manipulation. That's what the technology does at its core. It looks fantastic. It generates a lot of code, but it's just text manipulating at its core.
So programming has leveled up into a problem of explaining your situation to the LLM that is slanging context, since you will want to include a lot of information from different instances and then merging the output back into your code base. I do believe the author is slightly wrong here, and I do believe that the cost in terms of energy and time for you to describe the problem in a way that the LLM can understand it and solve it will get so high, actually higher than actually you solving the problem and maybe using the LLM to help you fill out the gaps. What's the reasoning it's outlined by a human?
I think what people forget is that when we explain the problem to the LLM, it's still a domain expert explaining it to it. So it's the expert programmer that goes in, kind of knows what they want, they know the function, goes in, takes a result in a couple of seconds, and it feels like GPT wrote all that. But the reality is it was the prompt that already interpolated that solution. So yes, if you're a domain expert and you have a very clear idea of what you want, then it's usually faster to have GPT writing most of the code, refactor it, and ship it. But you need to understand that the hard work there is not generating the code. It's having the domain expertise to correct that code. And that if you wouldn't have that, and I invite you to test writing code in any technology you're not super familiar with. And this doesn't mean I can build a REST API in Node.js and I'm going to build it with AI in C#, because you still know what the REST API is. Try to do something you've never done before. You'll find yourself lost. You'll find yourself going to the documentation, and you'll find out that GPT repeats itself quite a lot, and the quality of the output and the quality of GPT, what GPT can do for you, will get better as your domain expertise expands. So again, I think a lot of senior developers are forgetting that there's a lot that comes into when we are querying the AI, and that comes from human experience, and it's not GPT merit. It's literally the quality of the prompt is the quality of the result.
How do you see GPT as a designer? It says, I had presented a small design problem to GPT asking for an evaluation of my options. It's great for that. Chat-oriented programming, it's not about just coding. There's a lot of design discussions too. I mean, I think that's a very blunt statement. I think the ability that GPT has, GPT can give you a lot of options. It can also miss out on the good options because it's kind of using a weighted average to find out what's the best option. So I think it would be a very big mistake to blindly trust GPT designs without actually using it more for research oriented.
There's this saying that if we were to ask, like I think Henry Ford said, if we were to ask the customers, we would build faster horses. I think GPT, if you want to solve transportation and you're back in the 19th century, it would give you faster horses. I think when it comes to thinking outside the box and coming out with innovative solutions, it might generate something that looks like one, but it's very far away from that. It's just very much, it's been marketed as intelligence. It looks intelligent. It looks like it has some mental models, but again, it's very much limited to the text input and to the prompt you're giving it. And from there to actually do chat-oriented programming, I think that's a very, very strong word. And I think we're seeing a lot of companies that try this, and now they're having a huge problem with code quality. There's too much code. Nobody understands who wrote all that. And the best software companies simplify it. They do not make things more complex.
Just like the best developers. With that being said, let's move farther down the road. I do invite you all to read this article just for you to go through the same reasoning. Chat, it seems it's safer for senior programmers. This goes in line to what Bogdan said about the domain expertise. The more domain expertise you have. And this is something we were chatting before the video. ChatGPT, it's great if you already know what you want. So that tells you a lot about the value it adds. If you can actually help me when I already know what I want and how to do it, then the value you add, I'm not saying it adds no value, but the value you add, it's maybe marginal, I would say.
Imagine I would tell you, I know a great doctor and he will help you once you know what your problem is, once you have your diagnosis, he or she. So, would you go? Would you trust that? And what's the added value there?
Awesome. Well, if chat-oriented becomes a dominant modality, which is what in a few years the norm for source code will be that it's written and modified by LLMs via prompting. Based on everything we said so far, I doubt this will happen. I think this is an over exaggeration, and I mean it's a nice idea to think about. I think if this person tries to do that in practice, we'll face the same roadblocks that Bogdan was talking about.
I think it depends. I think there will be domains where, yes, it will make sense to have LLMs writing a lot of code. Imagine you're building some sort of embedded software for a very niche kind of hardware, and it's a kind of restrained problem. You don't want necessarily to specialize there. You can have LLMs writing a lot of that code. If that would happen at an industry scale, we will see. And even if it does happen, you would still need expert programmers using those machines. So we've seen this in the last years when me and Drago started out coding. There were a lot of people were building SaaS software. Zapier wasn't around. You had to build a lot from scratch. Nowadays, we use things like Zapier. It's a lot of integration work, and LLMs will help with that. The job has changed since 20 years ago. It's been continuously changing, but it's very far away from disappearing.
100% Bogdan. Okay, let's proceed. So defining kind of what a senior is, if you want, and here is where this person starts giving tips to senior devs. And the question is, if you want to survive the change, you better show up prepared and stay on top of it. The rest of this post is just some direct, simple, and timeless advice for junior devs and aspiring software engineers. I mean, I think Bogdan and I know quite a bit about that. We trained around 270 people ourselves, personally, one-on-one in our coaching programs. So let's see the advice. Get good fast. Oh, yeah, I mean, what can I say about that? That's what you need to do. Get ahead of the slackers. I do not like to call people slackers. I think this is a bit of an exaggeration. I think most developers we work with, even if they're not at the level they want to, they are very ambitious, very hungry, and I wouldn't call them slackers. A lot of people are struggling to make it in an industry that evolves very fast. Gain experience anywhere and any way you can before you even leave school. Yeah, of course. Like, this is nothing changes. Get work experience, contribute to open source. Is this open source before leaving school? I don't think you have the ability to do that. Program on the side.
Do we need open source given that GPT will write all the code?
Good one, Bogdan. Learn more than is requiring of passing each class. I mean, hey, you know what? Also, why not have fun in college and, worry about getting a job later and get off YouTube for your mental health? Focus on algorithms, data structure, software design, engineering, discrete math, operating systems, compilers, databases, network, blah, 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 real systems.
It looks like 3 bachelor's degrees at the same time.
100%. And I think this is one of the problems, the major systemic problems that we have in software engineering. This kind of advice that tells you basically do everything you can, which is responsible for the poor mental health, for people running in 100 different directions. And honestly, the first thing we do with developers that decide to work with us is to kind of get them focused and to simplify everything they're doing. Because we don't have a problem that people are not doing too many things. They're doing too much of the wrong things. Okay, so my advice to you is just focus on one thing, master it, and then move on to the others. And no, you don't need to know compilers, databases, and all that just to get a programming job, okay? So just chill out and just focus on mastering one thing at once. Focus, it's more important than just doing a thousand different things. And yeah, lean hard on a coding assistant like Cody. Of course, do use coding assistants. They're very useful and they will help you go faster, but do not freak out. They won't replace you. They won't get your job. And just to close up, I'll let Bogdan say his final words on this.
I would say I made my worst career decisions based on fear and anxiety. It's not a good driver. I think there's a lot of that nowadays in the market. People are, there are layoffs, that's for sure. There's been a bit of an overhiring. There's a bit of a change in the industry. But again, you just want to make sure that you get better as an engineer, you get better as a professional, and you improve every year. And use AI. Try out Cursor. We're working with it at the senior dev. Try out Cody in this case. I work with Copilot every day. I do not see Copilot as the beginning of my thinking or my job. It's usually the end.
100% Bogdan. Yeah, folks. So I hope this helped you. I hope at least we managed to kind of ease off that anxiety, because me personally and Bogdan, as going through this article, if it wasn't for this strong opinion that we hold, which comes in part from our experience as developers, but our experience training developers, I would be a bit afraid. I would start freaking out. Do I have a future? I invested, a lot of you invested many hours in getting better at programming just to see these things. Now, 3 things I want you to do. Number 1, let us know what you think. Go read the article and drop a comment in the comment section. Bogdan and I will be there to answer and help you out if you have any further questions about the things that we talked about. Number 2, there is a free technical assessment if you're really interested and if you really don't want to chase all these 3 rabbits at the same time, like this article unfortunately is telling you to do. Check the free assessment that we put together for you. It will give you a better understanding of where you're at and what are the things you need to focus on in order for you to level up without having to chase all these different things at the same time. And I want to thank Bogdan. Thank you, Bogdan.
You're welcome.
This is a new format that we are trying trying. I hope you like it because we're planning to do a lot more discussions like that. And let us know in the comments how you like this new format and if you want us to do more of these videos. With that being said, keep your heads up, keep up the good work, and Bogdan and I will see you in the next one.